French yellow vests are discussing the possibility of doing a bank run on major French banks. What is a bank run? Can a bank run possibly succeed? How does it fit in together with fractional reserve lending, the debt system, fiat currencies, and of course, with Bitcoin? We're going to be discussing all of that after a quick note that Binance has just launched Binance.je or Jersey. This is their fiat onboard for Europe. So if you are based in Europe and you want to invest in Bitcoin or Ethereum using pounds or euros, you can now do that on Binance.je. There is a referral link down below if you want to go ahead and get signed up for that. Now, the idea of a bank run. This is where essentially everyone goes to the bank and takes their money out of the bank. Now, why is it a bank run? The bank should have your money, right? Well, the bank kind of doesn't have your money. They kind of do have your money. See, if just you go to the bank and withdraw your money, the bank's got your money. Cool, no problem. But if everybody goes to the bank and asks for their money, if you're the 11th guy in line, the bank might not have your money. And that is because banks practice fractional reserve lending. Now, in response to the threat that the yellow vests are going to be doing a bank run, what have banks in France been doing? Well, they've been shutting shop. They've been closing up. Now, maybe it's because they don't want any kind of drama or violence happening at their branches. Maybe. But they're just closing the banks, and ATMs are experiencing mysterious glitches where suddenly they're not working anymore. Now you add in that to the fact that your bank's only open from Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 anyway, and that if you want to go to an ATM, for example, you have like a daily withdrawal limit of, let's say, $500. Different banks, different ATMs, different limits, of course, but it's really hard to get your money out of the bank, isn't it? It's easy to put it in. Well, easy enough to put it in, assuming that you have all of the requisite things, an address and identity and all these different things. Not everyone has those, even in the world's most developed countries, but most people do in France. But it becomes very difficult when you want to take your money back, which is highly problematic. You know how the old saying goes, your bank, your money, not your bank, not your money. Now, this all comes back to the idea of fractional reserve lending. How a bank can take, for example, $1,000 and turn it into like $10,000 is a bit of magic when it comes down to it. Let me give you a very basic example. I take $1,000 down to the bank and I put it in my savings account. Now, because of the fractional reserve lending idea, the bank only needs to keep a fraction of that money in a reserve. So they put $100 in the vault and they take the other $900 and they lend it out to Sally. So Sally takes the $900 and she goes and buys a car from John. Now John takes his $900 from selling the car to Sally down to the bank, puts it in the bank. The bank takes $90, puts it in the vault. The other $810, they lend it out to Frederick. Now this process repeats and continues, but let's just say that it stops there. I go to the bank the next day and say, hey, actually, I'd like to take my $1,000 back out, please. And they say, sorry, dude, we only have $190 in the vault because we lent all your money out. Now, that is a very, very basic example of how it works. But essentially, you take that to a large scale, and the banks don't actually physically have everyone's money. And that is incredibly problematic when you think about it. Now, it's okay if a certain percentage of the population goes in every day and withdraws their money. The banks are always prepared for the eventuality that, 5 or 10% of the population is going to come in and take their money on any given day. But if everybody went to take their money, then it becomes big trouble for the banks because they simply do not have your money. Now, we add into this a few different factors and we can see some of the real problems with the banking system. One, of course, is that only about 10% of the total money supply is in physical bills and coins. The other 90% just exists as ones and zeros on computers. You can't withdraw a 1 or a 0 from a computer, can you? No, you can't. Then, of course, we have the debt factor. Now, the debt factor is very serious because so many people have student loans, mortgages on their houses, car loans, TV loans, credit cards, etc., etc., etc. So a lot of people don't actually have any money sitting in the bank. They just owe the bank a lot of money. So that is one reason why it's difficult for everyone to do a bank run, because a lot of people don't have any money sitting in the bank in the first place. They just owe tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to the bank, which is crazy in itself. But the debt problem is very, very serious. Now, with a bank, it's really hard for a customer to win, essentially, because the bank has everything in its favor. It dictates when you can access your money, if you can access your money. Let's imagine, for example, you go in and take $10,000 in cash out. What do you think the bank's going to do when you do that? Just say, here's your bank, or here's your money, sir, please enjoy. No, they're going to go, oh, there's your $10,000. Call up the government. Hey, somebody just took $10,000 in cash out. You should probably investigate them because that's really strange. That's the bank. That's what the bank will do. Unless, of course, you're a multimillionaire, then the rules don't really apply to you. But if you're a regular Joe doing that, you best be careful because, you know, the cop will be waiting down the street for that good old classic civil asset forfeiture. Gotta love those. Theft by cop by any other name. Now, when it comes to the banks winning, they just can't lose. Look at 2008. They crashed the global economy. What happens? They get bailed out. Classic situation. Socialism for the rich, capitalism for the poor. Some countries also have bail-in clauses where the bank can take your money. Bailing in. That's another crazy system. Now, all of this fraud, because the banking system is a system of fraud, which is insane. The business model of banks is fraud, and it is enabled by the debt system and the fiat money system. The fact that governments can just go print, 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 and make more money is insanely broken. Just try to, for a second, forget that it's money, right? Government issued money. And just imagine if this was a cryptocurrency project. Wouldn't that sound pretty scammy? Like, oh yeah, there's an unaccountable organization somewhere that just gets to, you know, keep printing money whenever they want. That printing of the money is stealing from anyone who holds that money, because every time they print that money, your money becomes worth just a little bit less, which is crazy again, because you just can't win. The banks, the government, they hold all the cards. And that's a pretty bad game to be playing. When everyone else holds the cards, you don't have any cards. You don't have any power in that system. The fiat debt-backed banking system may be the biggest scam in history. And yet, we all continue to support that system. And it's really hard to escape that system. I know. I would love to pay for everything in Bitcoin and crypto, but it's just not here yet. The infrastructure isn't here yet. I wish it was. Some places are doing better than others, but a lot of places are still very far from achieving that kind of forward momentum with cryptocurrencies. But it is definitely a big lie that we need the banks, because the banks operate against us. They do it openly, they do it in secret, they do it in collusion with politicians that they buy, they write the rules in favor of themselves, they do horrible fraud against their customers all the time, and then they get caught, get a little slap on the wrist, a little fine they gotta pay to the government, and still keep 95% of the profits that they made from that fraud. That is a broken system. I have a few good quotes here for you that kind of help you imagine how these kind of systems can continue to exist. The first one is this: if you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. The lie can be maintained only for such time as the state can shield the people from the political, economic, and or military consequences of the lie. It thus becomes vitally important for the state to use all of its power to repress dissent. For the truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, and thus, by extension, the truth is the greatest enemy of the state. That's Joseph Goebbels, by the way, Hitler's right-hand man. That is not an endorsement of Nazi ideology, guys, but that is a great example of someone who told a lot of very big lies. And this is the mentality behind it. And if you think that these ideas were specific to, extreme nationalists, you're wrong. Governments use these ideas all the time. Think of all of the lies that we are made to believe, lies that are repeated constantly to us. So many of the things that we think we know, we don't know. So many of the things that we think we have to depend on, it's just not true. The lies are so incredibly big and they're repeated so often that people start to believe them, which is mind-boggling beyond belief. Now, as it concerns money lending and the idea of charging massive amounts of interest on people for buying houses and cars and all these different things, there was this guy about 2,000 years ago, long-haired hippie dude, used to cruise around Israel with a bunch of other long-haired hippie dudes. Now this guy, of course, was Jesus! In Proverbs 22:7, the wealthy rule over the poor, and anyone who borrows is a slave to the lender. Is a slave to the lender. When you get a mortgage, what happens to you? You become a slave to the bank. Very simple, very destructive, very powerful, that statement. Interestingly, the Bible was quite anti-money lending. There's quite a few different passages in the Bible about the dangers of money lending and how Jesus was anti-charging interest. Remember when Jesus went to the temple, he didn't kick out the poor, he didn't kick out the beggars, he didn't kick out anyone else except the money lenders. The money lenders, get out of the temple, guys, you shouldn't be here. We have created a society where the money lenders are in charge of everything. And what kind of result has that given our society? Not a very good one. You understand why the Yellow Vest protesters are out there in Paris and in Bordeaux and other across the nation protesting against the system, because the government has supported a system that has enslaved the citizens. It's sick. It's a massive lie. It's a massive fraud. And yet, remember, the bigger the lie, the more often it's repeated, the more essential you think that it is. There's another good quote I have for you. It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. That's Henry Ford who made that quote. And it seems that the French are starting to figure this out. They're sitting at the table trying to play a game where everyone else holds the cards except the regular citizens. Regular citizens, we are so more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. The media will tell you you don't have any power. The government will tell you you don't have any power, except every 4 years you're allowed to vote for Team Red or Team Blue, who are both backed by the same people and give the same results no matter what party you vote for. That's not freedom. That is another form of slavery. Hey, quick fun fact for you, by the way. Tear gas is an illegal weapon in international warfare. So let's say that France wanted to throw tear gas on Spain. That would be a war crime. But it's totally legit to use tear gas on your own citizens. Does anyone else see the joyful irony of paying taxes that you probably don't want to pay because they all go off to subsidies for big companies and all this stuff, but at the same time, paying taxes that buy the tools of your own oppression? You paid for that tear gas, French citizens. You paid for those police to beat your heads in, French citizens. That is whacked. And yet it continues to happen. Now, to bring this back to the idea of the French doing a bank run, that is why a bank run is an important idea. That is why we should not be giving powers to the banks, right? Will the French bank run succeed? I'm going to give it a distant maybe. And that's kind of exciting. I'll take even a tiny chance of something like this working. But honestly, it needs everyone to participate. And the Yellow Vests, well, very big voice and very prominent, they do not have 100% support of everyone inside of France. It would require everyone, or near everyone, to go and take their money out. And I don't see that happening. Unfortunately, I would love that to happen. That would be really cool if that happened. And you can combine that in with banks closing and ATMs having distribution errors on the day that you want to go and take your money out. The ability of the European Central Bank to physically deliver probably hundreds of billions of physical euros into France to prevent the banks there from collapsing. And of course, when we talk about the personal debt problem, that a lot of people don't even have money in the bank to go and take out, like I said, it's a distant maybe. It's an exciting distant maybe, but now that brings us to Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin, when it comes down to it, is where the real revolution is at. We have to take the power back away from the banks. We have to stop supporting the banks. And I know I have a credit card, guys, and I always pay it off immediately by getting those air points and all that stuff. And it's, yes, we are all hypocritical on some level. I live in a society where, like I said, I can't pay for everything with cryptocurrencies. Not yet. Maybe that day will come soon and I can, but it's not there yet. So we are still stuck with this, at least to a part, this old system. But Bitcoin is definitely the money of the future. Because sound money is powerful. The fact that governments are just able to print money whenever they want, that's broken. That's a broken system, and that steals from you every time they do it. The fact that you can only access your money when the bank says you're allowed to access your money is totally broken. It's your money. You should have access to it 24/7, be allowed to send it to whoever you want to send it to, whenever you want to send it. No censorship, no sanctions, no BS, no country to country, oh, we don't do business with that country, or you can't send it to that person. No. That's not freedom of money. That's oppression of your financial voice. The collective might of people choosing where they put their money is indeed powerful. That's why the idea of a bank run in of itself is so incredibly powerful. But can a bank run succeed? Like I said, a distant maybe. But Jimmy Song, a very powerful voice in Bitcoin advocacy, has weighed in on the idea of Bitcoin as a revolution. Jimmy Song said, "Revolutions we are seeing are aiming at changing who is in charge. However, what they should be doing is taking back the power for themselves. It starts with Bitcoin. If people would realize it, then violence would not be necessary because they could take power away without the violence. It would be possible to change things for the better without putting lives on the line and risking jail time. It is possible to have peaceful revolutions with Bitcoin." He goes on to say, when you're talking about governance and you're talking about the user winning out over the monoliths, the corporations, and the plutocrats, it seems as though Bitcoin is the currency of resistance. I love that line. Bitcoin is the currency of resistance. Bitcoin should be the currency for all these global movements to unify. So true. It is the powers that we most want to take the power back from. It's the banks, it's the governments. They have your money. You're in debt to them. They make you pay taxes with the threat of violence. It's really hard to win over that as an individual, even as a collectivized group of people. What do? The cops start arresting all the heads of that movement, and everyone gets scared really quickly. It's a brutal system that we're up against. The current financial system is predatory. It's destructive, and this system of debt and fiat is only continuing to push us closer to really complete Armageddon as climate catastrophe continues to unfold in real time. Debt continues to explode on an unbelievable level globally. Poverty is still rife across the world. It's 2019 and we still have half the world's population living in abject poverty. It's mind-boggling. And of course, politics are the problem, not the answer. Corrupt politicians are paid to stall any real changes so that the big banks and the big corporations can continue to loot the world. That's not the future I want. It's probably not the future you want either. It is time for Plan B. It is time for sound money. It's time for the future of money. And it's time to take back our sovereignty as self-sovereign financial agents. Bitcoin is the only thing offering that right now, or some other cryptocurrencies too. Let's keep that real. But Bitcoin's the head of it. Bitcoin is the tip of the spear, guys. And it is so important to realize the value behind that and to see the future potential of that power. Anyway, those are just my thoughts, my 2 Satoshis on the idea of a French bank run. Can it happen? And how does Bitcoin play into all of this? I would love, as always, to know your thoughts on this topic down below in the comments section. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. You are super awesome, and I appreciate you always coming out here to take your time to watch these videos. And if it's not too much trouble, a thumbs up would be super appreciated on the video. And if you're new around here, you can subscribe to the channel. You can also hit that notification bell to know when I put out a new video. Long live the blockchain, and peace out till next time.